I thought I would do something a little bit more low-key, a tutorial in my pajamas on the floor. So we're going to be doing a Long Island scene. Let's get into it. Welcome to the voiceover. We have cobalt blue, yellow, black, and flag red, and of course white in the beginning. That gives us our primary colors, and white and black to tint and shade. First, I'm going to take this wet paintbrush, and there's my cat, and ruler, and we are going to trace out the perimeter of the painting so that we have an idea of how large it is and how large our photograph is. I'm going to make sure I leave this photograph for you guys in a link down below in my description. It will be on my Twitter page, so if you want to do this tutorial at home, you can do so. Download it from my Twitter. By having the photo next to my painting, I'm able to measure things right across and compare colors really easily. I've found that this is the most accurate way for me to get the colors I want and to get scale and colors. I said colors twice. We are blocking in basic shapes right now, so the boat doesn't look perfect, but it gives me a general idea of where it is, so I have a baseline to start with. And now I'm going in and creating the sand, which you'll notice is a gradient. It's darker by the shoreline and gets lighter, so I'm getting a base color down. In fact, I'm getting a base color down everywhere. The reason for this is that when you go in and add more details, you have this history of color behind it that pops through, and you're not going to end up with little white areas that pop through, which I think always lends to a very unfinished looking piece. I got my paintbrush a little wet to help with that gradient. It helps smooth the transition. And now we're going to go in and make the shadowy areas between the trees. I just used a combination of blue, yellow, and black. After doing a more opaque areas between the trees, I just got that blue yellow black combo wet, and I did some dappling on top of the trees to give it some texture. That's not the end of it though. So I'm using this small paintbrush, and we want to create a really yellowy kind of green, and that's going to become our grass right at the shore where the trees hit the sand, and then I am pulling it up to create the effect of the little grass blades. Now I'm making a darker green. A lot of the combos of colors are just yellow and blue. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm creating the line where the bushes and the sand, no, not the sand, where the bushes and the grasslands meet each other, and putting in some shadowy details, then wiping them out a little bit with a wet paintbrush when they were too intense. There's a little bush on the shoreline right there. Feel free to eliminate it if you don't want to paint it in, but I went for it. Just created a very sap green kind of color for that. I'm about to mix up two different colors. One is a yellowy mint, and put that to the side, and then one is going to be more of a mustardy yellow. It has a little bit of those blue tones in it, but then I put the red in it afterwards to give it some more brown. I'm hitting the areas where the sunlight hits the trees right on the tops with the most opaque amount of the colors and the lighter colors to show that the sunlight is hitting it. And then as I go throughout this, I'm doing some dotting and pulling, and just basically creating some texture for the leaves. And then going back in with just pretty much pure black to give more definition to the outsides of those leaves. We're going to revisit this again even after this part, but this is where I put in most of the details for my trees and added shadows and definitions. And you see I used a very tiny round tipped brush. Over here you can see that there's a hill behind the trees, and that areas of orange is where the sunlight is popping through. So I'm going to put that in mine as well, and I just use a combination of flag red, yellow, and white for this. We are adding more definition to the tops of the grass area, mostly with black. You can see there is a very defined line between the sand and the grass in the photo, so I wanted to define that line by really lightening up the top of the gradient for the sand. And taping things off is a great way to get a straight edge, but if you do it, just make sure whatever you have underneath your tape is dry completely, or else it's going to rip your paper with it, which I did a tiny bit later in this tutorial. Just using variations of a white, red, and yellow combination and making that gradient effect, making sure it gets darker right by the sand hitting the water, and warming it up with a little yellow at the top. Now I'm going to take a tiny brush and some white, and I am just going to add texturing to show that there is a rocky shoreline. The beaches, at least near me on Long Island, are very rocky. And I have this brush kind of for stamp making, so I added a little white to that and just dabbed that on too. Okay, before I add any detail to my water, I wanted a more opaque background to it, and then after that gets opaquely on there, I can go ahead and add details. Letting it dry, I'm working on the boat now. You can see the underbelly of the boat has a little bit of a peach tone to it and blue tones when you get near the end, the way the shadows and reflections work. I went a little bit more intense in the beginning than I needed to with the color, but I end up toning it back later. Then I'm taking the tiniest brush known to man and doing some detail work. The boat is definitely the hardest part of this tutorial. I had a lot of very scary moments along the way where you have to be very precise, like right now. I'm going in with that dark blue line. It's just a cobalt blue and black mixture of paint. If you mess up when you do this, you can go back in underneath it and around it and smooth things out, which is exactly what I'm doing right here, as well as toning back that crazy amount of peach. There is a blue line at the bottom of my boat, so I added that as well, and now I am adding some shadow to where the boat hits the water with just pure black. Whatever you see above is going to be reflected below, so we have the peach color coming into the reflection, and it follows the shape of the bow of the boat, which is the front of the boat, and has that curvature. Next, we're doing the mast. This was a really scary part for me. I measured out the angle with my paintbrush and I left it there, and I applied my tape, and after that I went back and checked the angle to make sure it's what I wanted, which it was. Then I put on a second piece of tape, made sure they were completely parallel so I had a consistent length of line, and now pure white I am painting over that. I end up doing another layer later that I don't show, but make sure that it's opaque because mine initially at this stage you could see through it, so I had to add more. This is just straight cobalt blue and white. As you're doing this, one thing I did is if you have little pressure on the point of your paintbrush and then you push a little harder in the middle and then pull up and less pressure at the end again, you end up getting those shapes that are a little bit like an eyeball. And I think it echoes the patterns of the reflections on the water. This was a really sunny day, so lots of blue reflections, but as we get close to the shoreline, those peach tones come back in and reflect the sand in the water. Just adding some opacity here to my reflection. Doing a little dry brushing actually, which gives it a different effect, not as smooth. And then this is a very wet, not very, but it's a damp paintbrush, and I'm adding in little squiggly lines that echo the way that the mast is reflected on the water. And here is our sail cover. Our sail is all pulled down and tied on up inside of there. I'm using the tape again for a straight edge, but this one was at a slightly different angle, so I got rid of the tape. And then I'm using just a piece of board, MDF board, for my straight edge now to put in all my lines. I did a little tinting to the water. It had much more of a bright green tone to it in the photograph, so I just watered down a mixture of yellow and blue
When you water it down, it makes it so it's a little bit transparent, or I guess it's more translucent is the correct word, and I added that as a glazing on top. And now I'm just going back in and adding more detailing with the treetops, making sure that they are opaque and that the colors really are bold and stand out where I need them to. Really pay attention to those areas where the light is hitting it most strongly. We're getting close. Just cleaned up the edges, got rid of the white, or no, added white. And there you have it.
Hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you will join me next Friday for another video, and if you are interested in more tutorials, I will leave links to them beside me. Thank you guys so much for everyone who has participated in See Robin. It's a hashtag on Twitter and Instagram where I share your artwork, and I'm gonna show off some of that over here as well. Alright, have a great week, guys. I will see you later. Subscribe and like. Alright, bye guys.